Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you all had a fantastic couple of weeks. Certainly a lot better than what I've had, as you might be able to hear, and I will probably demonstrate throughout the stream. I've been fairly ill. Now, normally I'll just push on through, get on stream, and just whinge about it the entirety. But it really wasn't worth me coming on and spluttering all over you guys. So thanks for persevering, and again, thanks for joining. Of course, for all you regulars on the stream, you know what this is about. For anybody new, thank you, welcome. This is your opportunity to talk about all things shooting, gun related, laws, what to buy, where to shoot, where there are clubs, so on and so forth. So please do get involved. Please use the chat box, or if you're watching this after the stream, then please feel free to drop a comment, unless that comment is to moan that this is like an hour and a half, 2 hour video, because it's a live stream. You don't tend to do those for 5 or 10 minutes. But get involved. But more importantly, hit the like button, make sure you are subscribed, and let's get into it. Apologies for the not so countdown intro. Restream seems to have thrown an absolute tantrum. By the time I managed to get it figured out, we were ready to go live. So why tease you any longer? So we are straight into it. First cough of this evening. Yes, still very much not 100%, but fortunately on the mend. This is getting really weird because the last few times that we've streamed, it's actually been quite positive, quite almost awe-inspiring, that shooting and firearms ownership and our legislation here in the UK seems to be heading within the right direction. And there is some more good news. And not only is there more good news, but it's a prime demonstration of why you should get involved with consultations, why it is worth the 30 seconds, 3 minutes, sometimes maximum 5 minutes that you have to spend to fill one out, and why all of the people that sit there and grumble and go, it's not worth it, they've already made up their decision, what difference can one person make? Well, they're just completely wrong. And the whilst centralized to Scotland, the biggest demonstrator that we've seen is with the permitted development rights. Now, we're going to have to go back a little bit to refresh, but this on the surface seems quite benign. But I think I phrased it something like, this would kill shooting sports entirely. And let's not forget, is whilst it was proposed for Scotland, it would quite easily and most happily be rolled out in England, in across Wales, across Ireland as well. So they like to use Scotland as a test bed. Fortunately for us, when they did that with airgun licensing, it was a complete disaster, and they didn't decide to roll it out through the rest of the UK. But we could very much see that they were going to try and roll this. We could see where it was going to head. If they rolled this out successfully in Scotland, then we would see it across the whole of the UK. So as a refresher, not to give you a complete lesson of sucking eggs on planning permission and development rights here within the UK, but we have something called permitted development rights, something that, when you have a piece of land, when you have a building, you can use it for certain purposes without having to go and get planning permission, or more aptly, you can use that land, that property, for certain activities up to 28 days per year, which gives way to the 28-day rule, is what we call it, which allows you to take part in any activity up to 28 days without planning permission. And this is so fundamental to grassroots shooting here within the UK. And I know there's similar things across the entire world where you can not necessarily get away is the wrong phrase, but you can make use of these exemptions, make use of these allowances within planning law to be able to start up a club. And the reason it's so fundamental is, yes, an established club with planning permission. You know, if you're shooting regularly, whether that's indoors, whether that's outdoors, if you're a full-time range, either run voluntarily or commercially, you're already going to have planning permission. You're already going to be pretty safe. But we're not just about what we currently have. We want to see, and Arian's a day late, dollar short, and hasn't checked to see that we're actually streaming. Um, my tech support, unfortunately, not instant response. I'm sure he will see this later. Don't worry, Arian, I fixed it. Um, where was I? Yeah, so it's fundamental because we don't want to just maintain what we already have. We want to grow the sport. We want more clubs, and anybody that shoots here in the UK will know, whether you've been trying to shoot for a month or you've been shooting for 10, 20 years. One of the biggest issues we have is that, you know, the availability of club, the number of clubs, the number of ranges that you can go and do this sport. And with shooting becoming so popular, the space at those ranges is getting more and more finite, and the waiting list getting ever longer. So we need to see new clubs. Now, new clubs, unless you've got a massive multi-million-pound backer, whether you've just got a stash of money from somewhere, no questions asked, you can't go from 0 to 60 straight away. You need to start slowly. You need to, you know, first of all, to become a Home Office approved club, I think you need 10 members to sign up, in the initial application. So initially, you need to go and find 10 people that is going to help back that application. And even just finding 10 people out of the blue in your local area can be quite hard. So you need to start regularly shooting, start small, making use of the 28-day rule, because planning permission can be very expensive. Going and buying land, renting land longer term can be very expensive. So the 28-day rule allows clubs to be incredibly flexible, not commit long term, because they can enter into sort of handshake agreements with landowners, try something out, grow the clubs, and once they've grown it, then they can get enough money. They can go into, you know, planning. They can go and get land and set their routes. So the 28-day rule is fundamental in clubs growing here within the UK. And what they proposed and what the consultation was about was removing this from the. And I'm going to spend half an hour trying to find it now. Was trying to remove shooting as a here we go, as one of the activities permitted under the 28-day rule. Temporary use of land, shooting ranges, current PDR for temporary use of land, so allows you to do that activity within 28 days. It's been brought to our attention that these provisions might be used to establish temporary firing ranges. Blah, 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 blah. Basically, they wanted to remove them, and it was such a obvious anti-gun stance. It was such an obvious backdoor ban to shooting, because they're not stupid. Yes, local councils can play dumb, or not even play dumb sometimes, but they know what they are doing. And certainly in Scotland, with the Estelle Moor ranges, with recoil, that have both come under attack quite significantly and quite publicly, there's quite this political angst to stop and prohibit shooting in any way they can. And of course, with Scotland, you also have Dunblane and the gun control network, and any sort of shooting club that pops up in Scotland, straight away it's all about Dunblane. It's the family of Dunblane and the gun control network, and it's really an uphill struggle. So it was quite obvious that they were doing this as a backdoor ban to shooting, which would be horrendous for Scotland and certainly for the rest of the UK if rolled out. Now, as I've been saying, this was a consultation. I did make a dedicated video on this because it was so important, and I pleaded with everyone, go and fill it out, go and submit your answers to it, because together with numbers, we can have an influence. We can stop things like this. And lo and behold, what ended up happening, it ended up getting stopped. And I received this email, I think it was even maybe today, might have been yesterday, but I think it was today. I'm sort of losing track of time at the moment. But I received this email from my from my submission. Thank you again for your response last summer. Yeah, it's just flown by, actually. It's quite scary. To the consultation on phase 3 of the permitted development rights PDR review. And I inform you that the statutory instrument blah, 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 was laid out, blah, blah, blah. What were we interested in? The consultation sought views on the principle of excluding temporary target shooting ranges from the scope of the 28-day rule. The feedback indicated that excluding temporary shooting ranges from the 28-day rule on a blanket basis could have unintended consequences, you don't say, of bringing a variety of routine small-scale works into the scope of the planning application process. It was not considered proportionate to take forward any measures, especially given that shooting is subject to separate licensing requirements, and taking account of other temporary activities that can take place under the 28-day rule or which do not constitute development for planning purposes, although the matter will be kept under review, and was decided not to amend the 28-day rule as regards to shooting ranges at this time. So a clear-cut success there. And actually, if you pick into it, I'm going off the top of my head from what I can remember was recommended. I believe somebody sent me a sort of a demo blurb to put into it, and it was brilliant. I think I tweaked it a little bit, but it really covered all of these different bases. And one of, I think, the two main elements, well, there's three elements that they've been made aware of specifically from the consultation. So it's not even a case of a lot of people have gone, this is a very bad idea, what do you think you are doing? But you can actually pick out of that response areas that were specifically highlighted and gave significant weight for them not moving forward with it. So the unintended consequence, well, unintended, that was brought to their attention. They weren't aware of it. Bringing a variety of routine, small-scale works into the scope of planning, the planning application process. What exactly those routine, small-scales work I don't know, but it very much sounds like local council that they were going to end up taking on a lot more work than they thought, or it would certainly cast the net wider than they intended. And local council don't exactly want any more work for themselves, do they? It was not considered proportionate to take forward any measures, especially given shooting is subject to separate licensing requirements. So this is one of the key elements that we talked about when submitting responses to this consultation. The almost just ridiculousness that somehow shooting ranges and firearms owners need any further regulation or any further licensing at all. It's some of the strictest certification, licensing, regulation, whatever you want to call it, that anybody can go through here within the UK. Even some security clearances are easier to obtain and less arduous to obtain than getting a firearm or shotgun certificate. It's easier to go and get your driving license. It can be actually quicker to go and get your driving license. HGV licenses as well. Maybe that's probably one of the closest comparators, because you've got medicals and various additional tests, whilst there obviously aren't any specific tests with certificates for firearms and shotguns. You're usually having to go to a club and demonstrate your competence to that club, so ergo a test. But this was one of the key elements that was brought to their attention, and that we discussed, which is, sorry, you're worried about people being unruly, causing disruption, annoying people. That doesn't fit the bill of lawful shooters in any way, shape, or form. Like, actually, if shooters are creating a nuisance of themselves, drawing police attention and local attentions, like, they've got bigger issues to worry about. And also taking account of other temporary activities that can take place under the 28-day rule. Again, this was another big point that was hammered home with this consultation: the fact that you would still be able to have festivals, music festivals, and large gatherings and motocross and motorsports under the 28-day rule. And it was like, well, hang on a minute, somebody going out there and shooting some air rifles, even going and shooting some clay pigeons, isn't going to generate the sort of disruption, the footfall and noise that a bloody music festival is going to generate. So actually, in terms of proportionality, if you really want to reduce the potential disruption to local villages, local towns, then you probably want to start at the motorsport end of the spectrum or the music festival end of the spectrum, not shooters. So this is just again a prime example of why it is absolutely fundamental for us to keep on these consultations, to submit our responses to these consultations, because it inarguably has a positive difference. And anybody that says it doesn't, they don't know what they're talking about, or they are just they're coming up for an excuse. They're coming up with an excuse, which and the excuse doesn't hold water in my mind. It's just ultimate laziness. It's ultimate flippantness. These consultations really do not take that much time out of your day. So to come up with any, just, oh, it doesn't make a difference. Well, it doesn't hurt. And actually, we've seen firsthand right here that responding to these consultations has a massive impact and can have a massive positive impact to the future of this sport. And on this note, I have been desperately trying to do a video on this. I might just be able to scrape it through and get it done in the next couple of days, because it is very important, and the lack of video doesn't necessarily lend to that, but it is. We have a very important consultation that is going on at the moment. I've just put the link in the chat box for you guys. I will try and remember to put it in the comment and the description section for anybody watching this after the fact. But we have an open consultation that closes on the 2nd of April. They really haven't given that much time, which I think is actually very promising. They haven't given that much time for it because I think they've already made their mind up. Oh God, I'm sounding like one of those. But I think they've made their mind up in a very positive way. So we just need to confirm that. It's just, even if we think a consultation is heading in the right direction, that doesn't give us any excuse to sit back and go, oh, it doesn't matter because they're going to do it anyway. Let's just give them some confirmation that they are doing the right thing. So this closes on the 2nd of April. So we do only have a few days left to do it. So if you've been putting it off, if you've forgotten about it, go and do it now. Open up a second tab, or break away, or just email yourself the link now so you do it in the morning. Get this done, and I'm hoping to get a video out on Sunday just to give it that sort of last push for anybody that hasn't done it. But this is about removing sound moderators off of ticket, off of certification and regulation here in the UK. It's a massive step in the right direction. Again, on the face of it, it seems very benign. It seems like, well, it's not the end of the world if moderators are licensed, but there are far bigger pluses and benefits to getting moderators, suppressors, silencers, whatever you want to call them, off of certification. And the biggest one is streamlining and removing some burden to our firearms licensing departments. Not like they do have a very hard job. They do have some very difficult decisions to make. I don't buy that they're inundated and snowed under, and the backlogs are all due to laziness, I think, at the root cause of it, and using the excuse of COVID. There are many different licensing departments that were able to continue through COVID and didn't amass backlogs, and the telltale bad counties that always have bad waiting lists seem to get worse and worse and worse over COVID, because they just were pretty much just using it as an excuse. But anyway, I digress. We do need to, where we can, not letting anybody off the hook here, but where we can, we do need to remove let's just say, nonsensical legislation and nonsensical checks and balances from our firearms licensing departments so that they can be more efficient. They should be more efficient anyway and just manage and run better. But again, I won't go off on that one. Just making their lives a little bit easier certainly gives them less excuse of having massive backlogs, because at the end of the day, a sound moderator is a bit of tube. Anybody with half a brain cell knows exactly what I'm going to say in terms of making them. I mean, you get adverts. That's it. You were getting people's posts taken left, right, and center talking about lawful shooting. But what is it, Timu or God, what was the big one before Timu? The Chinese dollar shop selling, you know, certain mechanical parts for cars with UNEF threads on them. Like, it's like, come on, Facebook. Like, you what was it that got taken down the other day? There was a post, I think it was it the muzzle brake? There was a Magload product. We did a Magload post about one of our products. Bearing in mind, none of our products are restricted in any way across the world. Anybody can buy them without a license in any country, maybe except for our firing pins. I think there are some restrictions on firing pins, but anyway, it wasn't the firing pins. Basically, our parts are upgrade parts. They're mostly not regulated. And Facebook took down the post because, well, it was a gun. It had gun in it, or I think it was definitely a shotgun component. It's a gun, so it took it down because it violates Facebook's terms and conditions, even though the Facebook's terms and conditions says that lawful sellers of this stuff, businesses, can still use it. But anyway, Facebook would take that down, but not Timu or no, it wasn't Alibaba. It was the other one that everybody was going mad. It was the more consumer faced one. But anyway, it is ridiculous that sound moderators are on ticket. They don't make guns silent. And at the end of the day, if somebody is in possession of a sound moderator and the gun and the ammunition, we should be far more worried about how they got the guns and the ammunition than the little can on the front of it that makes it slightly quieter. And in my mind, if someone's shooting at me, I don't really care if it's a moderated gun or an unsuppressed gun. The fact that somebody's shooting at me is going to be my main worry. The fact that they might blow an eardrum out at the same time, not really my top concern. So they should just be removed from certification. For anybody that doesn't know, a sound moderator at the moment here in the UK is considered a firearm. Right, not just a component part or a firearm accessory. It is having a moderator without certification, unless it's an air gun, and I'll not get into all of that. You can get the same prison sentence for having a sound moderator as you could you could get the same prison sentence for having a Section 5 handgun off ticket. And it's just it makes absolutely no sense. It's taking up a lot of work and time from our firearms licensing departments. And at the end of the day, the main use of these things, unless you are James Bond, unless you are in the SAS, if you are a Section 1 certificate holder, you are using these either for stalking, so that you're not disturbing the animals or even disturbing people, in rural areas, but mainly for target shooters. It's actually about hearing protection. It's actually about making sure that you don't go deaf and you don't make your friends go deaf. Because as devout as people will be in terms of having hearing protection in or on whilst they're at a range, it happens where you get caught off guard. You might take it off for 2 seconds to wipe the sweat off your ear if you're using over ears, or just clear out all that earwax from the in ears, and you get caught off guard. Someone lets off a 308 right by you with a muzzle brake. It can be pretty painful. So it just makes so much sense to remove these. There's a consultation at the moment. As we've seen with the permitted development, you can make a positive difference. Whilst it looks like it's very much heading in the right direction already, and we think that everybody's sort of already made up their minds and this is just a box tick exercise, it certainly isn't going to hurt. Well, it's going to hurt if you fill in the consultation going, no, don't do it. But just like, just reply to it. You know, it's strongly agree on all of them. Let's just have a quick. I know we've already covered this, but it is very important. It's strongly agree for though. For what extent do you agree or disagree that the requirement to obtain still from police force require possession should be removed? Strongly agree. All of these from memory. Strongly agree. Strongly agree. Strongly agree. Any other comments? Yes, we talked about the big aspects of amending section. Oh God, um, what was it? Oh, I can't. I was it section 50? This is why I need to make a dedicated video about it. I have forgotten. Basically, removing ammunition limits is another thing that we could propose that they remove to lower the burden of firearms licensing, and also I think it was section 50. I'm gonna have to check. Fortunately, um, fortunately, somebody was sending it to me the other day. This is why I need to and it was quite a while ago that we talked about it. Section 15. Yeah, it was section 15. I actually remember something of the 1988 Act to change rifle to firearm. Basically, this is the Home Office approved club exemption that allows people to take possession of rifles and muzzleloader, or rifles and black powder. If we change rifle to firearm and just remove the specific definition of rifle and muzzleloader, then you'd be able to borrow any section 1 or section 2 firearm, depending on your definition of firearm, um, under the Home Office approved club exemption, which would be massive for practical shooting. It would allow people to borrow section 1 shotguns. It would allow people to borrow LBPs and LBRs. So you can put those, amend section 15 to change rifle to firearm, and also remove ammunition limits. I know there were some other really good suggestions that I can't remember from other people last time we talked about it. But also in terms of other comments on this consultation, like, just put yes, 100%. Everything makes sense here. It's a win all round. Absolutely do it. No objections from us. There is also another consultation. Tonight is turning into a bit of a consultation, but this is a consultation binge. I'm going to put a link again in the chat box. I will try and remember to put this in the description or comment section for anybody watching this after it's gone out. It's a consultation on crossbows. There's been a big push recently around crossbows because of a few high-profile cases where people have been hurt and killed by them. Banning crossbows will be as effective as bringing in airgun licensing in Scotland. And the main issue here is that we have been able to, this is a very British thing. We have been able to own crossbows without certification, without licensing, for literally hundreds of years, which means there are unknown amounts and quantities of crossbows across the country that nobody knows exists. And it would be impossible to ensure that this, bringing in any further controls, any restrictions, licensing, certification, or even just banning them, would actually have any effect, because the sort of people that are going around shooting other people with crossbows aren't the sort of people that are going to hand them in and go and get a license. So all you're going to do is make sure that you remove crossbows from the people that aren't causing any issue, and ensuring that the people that are causing issues are the only ones with crossbows left. So, from the same justification as why we haven't seen airgun licensing here within England and Wales, we shouldn't be bringing in further controls on crossbows. And look, they've tried to do this with knives. We had this whole offensive weapons bill and zombie knives, and further restrictions in mailing knives, which we will actually get into in a second. There's a small story on that. It's made absolutely no difference. You are still seeing regular videos of people running around London, running around major cities and even small towns with massive knives, what would be defined as zombie knives, still hurting and killing people with them. It had absolutely no effect. If anything, it's just going to make sure that they just pick up a kitchen knife rather than a zombie knife. And as I think we covered it, as somebody pointed out, actually a lot of these zombie knives aren't actually very effective weapons. Yes, they look very scary, and yes, you could do a lot of damage with them, but they're like novelty knives. You know, they're off Amazon for a tenner. Like, what would you rather be, you know, attacked with? You know, a poorly made, poorly sharpened, scary looking 10 quid zombie knife off of Amazon, or like a £150 Japanese cooking knife that is going to cut through you like a hot knife through butter. And somebody like broke this down and actually made a very, very good point with this, that actually all the offensive weapons bill has done is make sure that these people carrying knives are actually just carrying more effective weapons, sharper weapons, and more capable weapons. Like, let them think that the big scary knife is going to be the sharpest thing on this planet, because actually they don't cause as much damage. I can't remember the channel name, but it was incredibly well put, and backed by a lot of evidence. So banning things doesn't work. We effectively banned the private ownership of handguns here in the UK back in 1997, and handgun crime still remains the single largest proportion of firearm offences within the UK, and handgun crime actually increased. So banning specific objects doesn't work. Licensing well after the horse has bolted, you know, closing that gate after the horse has bolted, like we've seen in Scotland, doesn't work. It's unfortunate that these knob ends get hold of something of powerful items like crossbows, items that can, in the wrong hands, do a lot of damage. And it's very unfortunate, but all they're going to do is go and pick something else up. It's the fact that these people are out there in our society, willing and capable of committing these acts. That's the real issue here. It doesn't really matter if they have a crossbow, a baseball bat, a golf club, or a knife. They are going to be a danger to other people. It's not about the object that they are handling. But 100% should go and contribute to this consultation. I don't think I've actually had a look at it. Should there be further legislative controls around the sale and ownership of crossbows? Nope. Should the sale and possession of broadhead arrows be prohibited with the exemptions listed in paragraph? Exemptions are sporting activity. Like, that's basically, like, why else would you have one? Oh, Jesus. Like, what? No, sorry, officer, I've got this to hurt people and I don't have the right exemption. Like, how do you prove somebody has one for sporting activities? Like, how do you prove it? Yes, I'm an actor. Like, that's just pointless. This is absolutely pointless. Like, no, if you're going to put silly, unquantifiable exemptions like that, then no. What is the absolute point? Do you buy, or have you ever bought broadhead arrows? It's down to, you know, your own personal purchase history. Do you own a crossbow? Again, that's down to personal your personal purchase history. If a license or permit scheme was brought into force, would you consider applying for a license or permit to own a crossbow? Now, of course, in my unique situation, applying for certification, permits, or licensing doesn't particularly go well. But I would, like, seriously, just out of spite. Just out of spite. I've never have I ever owned a crossbow? No. Don't think I have actually ever owned a crossbow. Don't actually think I've ever shot a crossbow. Don't even think I've shot a compound bow. And I've always wanted to shoot one of those. They do look cool. Like, this sort of thing just makes me want to go out and buy a crossbow even more. Like, you know, they're their own worst enemies. It's the English Shooting Bourbon update. I am on the Widow Jane 10-year this evening. I heard something about once you get halfway through the bottle, this might just be an alcoholic's justification here, but once you get halfway through the bottle of like a whiskey or a bourbon or some sort of spirit, it begins to oxidize faster. So you have to drink the last half quicker. You can't savor it, not savor it, save it. You can't hold on to it as long, or what's the word? Basically once you get to halfway down, it's like, you know, I think it's like 6 months or a year, it would go bad or the taste would be affected. Now, it's not the end of the world having to finish half a bottle over 6 months or 12 months, because there's a Christmas in that period. But yeah, down to half on that. So might have to get a backup bottle soon. It is one of my favorites that I've had, which is why I've been savoring it and why I've got down to half a bottle. But anyway, where were we? So yes, like for me, that would be yes. Like if it's almost like the forbidden fruit. Oh, you need a certificate now to own it. I'll just become a registered crossbow dealer. There we go. I won't need the permit. If a licensing or permit scheme was brought into force, would you consider applying for a license or permit to be able to buy a crossbow? What? So I'm guessing that's if you've already got one, would you still keep it? And well, yes, but both yes. I'm sure that could be answered with one question instead of two. Do you use a crossbow for the following: personal or recreational shooting, sporting competition, reenactment? I do not own a crossbow. Other, please specify. Do you manufacture, import, or sell crossbows and ancillary equipment? Yes, manufacture. Yes, import. Yes, retail. No. If you have any other comments, please enter them here. This is crossbows@homeoffice.gov.uk. I want that. I want that email address. I really, really do. Crossbows at. It's the smallest things that make me giggle. About you, full job, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, obviously that's down to your thing. But as we've just seen, these consultations do not take a lot of time. The links are in the chat thing. I will put them in the description and comment section after the stream. If I remember, I may just die. Man flu serious. Hashtag me too. Or hashtag P Diddy. We will not be descending down that hole this evening. That is for certain. I've always been more of a Dre fan myself. So anyway, two important consultations. Get your responses in. It takes 30 seconds for both of those. You could probably complete both in a couple of minutes, depending on how wordy you want to get on the additional information. Silvermine 203. I'm just going to go through your comments, guys. So remember, if you've got any questions, you want to say something, you want to have your opinions heard of anything that I've said, or any questions, or if there's any topics you think we should be discussing this evening, then please do get involved. I will not bite unless you ask me to. So yeah, drop something, even if you just want to say hello. It's not scary. People won't judge you. So Silvermine 203, a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm, much appreciated. John O'Neill, gun laws in Ireland are as tight as a nun's knickers. Are they the same in Britain? More or less, yes. By Ireland, yeah, Ireland is a separate country. It does have its own firearms legislation. Northern Ireland is obviously very, very similar to the rest of the UK. There are some, again, subtle differences. One, that they can have handguns and pistol caliber carbines, but also their magazines are licensed, as a lot of people have previously found out trying to travel over to Nizza with their Glock mags and finding out some that the airport security were really, really not happy. But anyway, but yeah, more or less, Ireland has pretty much the same the same laws as the rest of as the UK. So if mine, hit the like button and leave a comment. Every interaction helps with the YouTube algorithm. Yes, it does. Again, thank you, Silvermine. Perhaps I should make you a mod, because you seem to be doing a lot better than Daniel. And speaking of the speaking of the devil, why did you steal Connor's beard? Now that is an insult to Connor's. This is nowhere near the level of Connor's beard. You can actually still see my neck. Yes, it has got maybe a little bit bushier than how longer term viewers of this channel will remember. I just like trying something a bit new, and also just to put it to bed that my beard is not spray on. This is more stuck on. Um, Unfortunately, I think its days are potentially numbered. Yes, that old chestnut, the better half, the fairer half, my missus, really doesn't like it. So yeah, there are limitations put on me because of the beard, and let's just say that I'd rather not have the beard and have those limitations lifted. Um, moving swiftly on. Uh, lack of welcoming clubs is an issue. Yes, it is. We've discussed that many times here on the channel. It is a pet peeve of mine when you have fantastic clubs, fantastic facilities and ranges, and they're either run by an absolute knob end, usually situated near Formula One racetracks, or yes, the committee are proper old boy clipboard warriors that just want to have effectively a private members club for them and their friends, even though give it, you know, 10 or 15 years or allow bang, they won't be left. And they don't want the new fresh blood coming in. And there is this sort of ageist approach to it of not wanting young blood, or, you know, they feel like they've gone through so much over their shooting career and that it shouldn't be easy to get into shooting, and that they are these sort of self-appointed gatekeepers. Or it can be down to things like not liking the sort of guns that the newer, younger shooters tend to lean towards, you know, like the AR-15s, like the AKs, like the long barrel pistols and Section 1 shotguns, these black tactical guns, nothing single shot and bolt action, and they tend to get their knickers in a twist all over it. So yes, it is a big issue, something that I'd love to see change, but an easy way that we can change is, at the moment, these gatekeeping clubs, there is a supply and demand issue. There is an over demand of people wanting to get into decent clubs and ranges, and an under supply of these clubs. So these gatekeeping clubs can be very picky. They can turn people away, and you know, because people will put up with a lot to be able to get into a club. They will keep their mouths shut and, you know, yes sir, no sir, because they don't know that, well, there's no other options. If we increase the amount of clubs, if we increase the amount of ranges, why having something like the 28-day rule is so important, then these clubs will just die. And, you know, take what I'm going to say with a bit of a pinch of salt, because again, we should have as many clubs as possible. But if a range is full of gatekeepers that doesn't want new people in and wants to have it a private members club, let that club die. Let that range get bought up by houses and let new clubs take over in the area. We don't need it. And, you know, it's almost laughable the amount of times that I've heard of clubs that don't let new blood in, that make it impossible to get hold of them, that are rude, that are not welcoming. And then, you know, almost in the same week, you hear of how they're having financial difficulties and the vultures are circling because they want the land and they want to put flats on that land, and, you know, shootings, you know, going downhill, and there's no longevity for shooters. And it's like, no, you're literally your own worst enemy. You know, more people in your club, that's more revenue, that's more money, and that's more ability to tell these housing developers to stuff off. You're going to stay there as a profitable, healthy, well-run range. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's sort of no changing some of these committees, some of these people in these clubs. So just let them run themselves into the ground, as long as we can get other ranges and other clubs up and running that are more welcoming to sort of fill that void. You know, if there was more competition, you would see these ranges suddenly change their tune. If there was more competition, what you would see is mass exoduses of membership from these ranges to new clubs, to the new ranges. You know, people will talk with their feet. Frank, yeah, I didn't need to know that. You bastard. But congratulations, just got your SGC and FAC through. The clock is very much ticking on mine. I did say this at the last stream. I'm going to just double check. Losing track of the days in the week. So it was agreed with the head of Hampshire Firearms Licensing that they would have a further 6 weeks for additional information. I don't know what additional information they are going to gather after the 3 years that they've spent with my application and the 18-month-long investigation on matters that weren't even substantial enough to even pass to the CPS. But anyway, I digress. So 6 weeks, that was on the 28th. Oh, it's the 28th today. How about that? That makes the maths very, very simple. It's been 4 weeks. That means there's technically, by her own deadline, there are only 2 weeks left for me to either get a yay or a nay. Obviously, I do very much hope that it's a easy, actually, yeah, nothing that concerns us. Here's your certificates. Get on with life. A man can dream. Or the no, actually, we're going to refuse it. We'll see you in court. And at that point, there will be several insurance companies phoned, and many tens of thousands of pounds, earmarked by said insurance companies. And Laura is going to get the mother of all retainers. But anyway, let's go through. 5 weeks, just got mine through. Only took 5 weeks from application. Where do you live, and do you have a spare room? 5 weeks is 5 weeks is impressive. Like, that's impressive for even the best firearms licensing departments pre-COVID. I have heard of one that took 4 weeks previously, but that was 4 weeks is the quickest turnaround I've ever heard for a firearms certificate application, well, shotgun certificate application, in fairness. But 5 weeks is pretty rapid, bearing in mind that you've submitted, they've had to do all their various background checks, somebody's had to come out and see you and interview you, inspect your security arrangements, go back, file the report, submit that to the powers that be, and then rubber stamp it. And even, to get something through Royal Mail in 5 weeks, that's impressive, an impressive feat on its own. That is very, very good. Very, very lucky. You, Joe, please leave. One thing is for sure, if you don't respond, it definitely won't make a difference. Absolutely. Peter Rose handed all my renewal info in at the beginning of October. License ran out December. Just had a visit by FEO. Hopefully new licenses will be through. Yeah, the fact, like, this is why it's just absolute shenanigans that you have. You have firearms licensing departments on one hand that can turn around initial applications in 5 weeks, but yet renewals, which, in fairness, in my mind, renewals are far more important than initial applications, because renewals, well, somebody has a gun, somebody has firearms. You usually end up giving them a temporary permit, which I assume, Peter, they've done for you. So you have somebody that is out there already with firearms that has gone over the period at which you say it's safe not to renew somebody. No, gone over the point which you need to renew and reassess somebody, otherwise it may pose a risk to the public, and it's like, no. So it's like, sorry, some counties can do 5 week initial applications, but you're talking, what we are, or pretty much April now, but 3 maths, 6 months. They're talking 6 months, and they can't even do a renewal. That is one of the biggest issues here within the UK, is the disparity amongst firearms licensing departments county to county. Some can't even do a renewal in 6 months, where some can do initial applications in 5 weeks. It makes absolutely no sense. Dire Avenger or 001. Will UK gun laws ever get less strict? I'm worried of the day that shotgun certificates become may issue. Yeah. So, do I think it's going to get less strict? Well, we're looking at potentially one that, things that are going to become less strict in the sound moderators. So, they're technically actually on the way to make things less strict. So, technically, yes. I am one of those eternal optim. I'm an eternal optimist. Um, I am very optimistic that through enough numbers, getting enough people in this sport, enough certificate holders making enough noise, and having enough proportion of the voting public, we could one day get handguns back on Section 1. We are already seeing sporting Section 5 licenses. That is a very, very big step towards getting them back on Section 1. We don't know. With the way that our political spectrum is going, it might be another 10 years. We need to go full circle and get over what's about to happen to our political landscape. But Wish, that was it. Sorry, I've just talking about Temu and Alibaba earlier. Yes, Wish was the one. You see these half-inch UNEF, service items for cars. Anyway, I digress. So yes, I am optimistic that things will get less strict. They keep talking and threatening about a complete overhaul and reform of the guidance and firearms licensing here within the UK. Yes, that will be a double-edged sword. We will most definitely lose some things. They will make it maybe harder in some ways, but I think hopefully overall it will be worth it for us, and things will get a lot easier and a lot more streamlined. In terms of saying shotguns become a may issue, like, let's just get one thing straight. Yes, and I'm not going to get into the whole Bill of Rights and all of that. Whilst it's a nice theory, I'm going to sneeze. No. Whilst it's a nice sort of theory and a nice topic, and everybody has the right and all that, and we don't need certificates. Yeah, try it. Just try it. I'm a traveler, I'm a free man, all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, just go and try it. Like, everybody that has tried to use that argument has ended up in prison. So um yes, you are technically right in terms of it is still effectively a right to have a shotgun certificate or own a shotgun here within the UK. And it's also why we have certificates and not licenses, because you can't license a right, but you can certificate it. It's all very weird and oldie woldy, but at the end of the day, like, shotgun certificates are not a will issue in any way, shape, or form. There are still quite massive caveats and hoops that you need to jump through to get a shotgun certificate. There are just only a couple additional ones. Obviously, you need good reason. That's really the biggest difference. With a shotgun certificate, you don't need a reason. With a firearms certificate, you need to demonstrate good reason. But a shotgun certificate is still a may issue. There is no guarantee that anybody will be given a shotgun certificate. You still have to demonstrate that you are of good character, that you don't oppose a danger to the public or the peace. If the police have any concerns whatsoever, and whilst again you don't need good reason, and we do always joke about it that technically in your interview you could just go, "I just want a shotgun." They may try to find a way of not giving you that certificate. It's always far better to actually sit there and go, well, I've been to this clay club, I've been to that clay club, I've done this, used to go shooting with my dad, I've been pigeon shooting, and actually show, rather than, nah, I just want a gun. Because that will be followed by some more in-depth questions that will maybe get to the root of why you really want a gun. So yeah, don't be under the illusion that shotgun certificates are a shall issue. Um, yeah, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Weird. I only getting adverts pop up on my phone, but not on the TV. Look, we've got to pay. We've got to keep the lights on somehow here. Um, the issue with sound mod consultation is that it doesn't affect Section 2 mods like hush power, which makes no sense. If you're responding, please mention Section 2 requiring changes too. I'm unsure what changes would be needed. If it's a Section 2 hush power, well, you can already own a hush power under a Section 2 shotgun certificate. And if you have component parts, so if you have two different barrels for a Section 1 shotgun, then you can just write them all on your, there's no limitation, there's no slots, so you can just have them all. Unless you're talking about being able to take a Section 2 hush power and put it on a, like a Section 2 hush power barrel, moderated barrel, and then put it on a Section 1 shotgun. But then it's slightly more than just a moderator. It's a whole barrel at that point. I don't exactly what you I don't understand what changes would actually be needed. Anyway, maybe I've missed something. Dire Avenger 001, would it be at all possible to get a 2.2 rimfire handguns on Section 1 licensing if there was a requirement to store them at a club, store them at clubs? There isn't the mechanism currently, but this is one of the things that is discussed often about a compromise that could be made to get handguns back on Section 1. And actually, it's one of my test sort of arguments or discussions that I have with people that aren't gun people. And, I talk to a lot of people about shooting, and it comes up in every sort of every area of life because we make small talk, and one of the easiest things to small talk about is, so what do you do? And it usually goes something along like this, along the lines of this, because I have no problem telling people the industry that I work in and what I do, but sometimes it's just easier unless they really want to know. So it goes something like this. What do you do? I work in manufacturing. What do you manufacture? Oh, sporting equipment. What sort of sporting equipment? Firearms. I tend to make a very big jump with that. Yeah, firearms. And it's, oh, okay. But for me, I find it always better to preface that with sport. Once you've got people in that sport frame of mind, when you say firearms, it's like, oh, clay pigeon shooting or stuff like that. And I'm like, clay pigeon shooting on steroids. But anyway, one of the discussions that I'll have with these people when they, start about shooting, and a lot of people will be quite straightforward. Oh, I think all guns should be banned. And I go, oh, well, why do you think that? Well, because of this, that, and the other. And then I shatter their existence. Because I'm like, well, actually, that's not right. Do you know about the saves, the GP checks, the FEO come out and interview you, and police background, and all this, and certification? And then by the end of it, people are going, well, actually, that's actually really sensible. And there's been a few times where we've started talking about handguns, and even people have on their own accord looked up and said, do you know what, I wouldn't actually have an issue if handguns were stored at a club and somebody could go to that range and shoot those handguns and leave the handguns there, and then maybe take them abroad elsewhere, or have them transported between clubs for competitions. And actually a lot of the general members of public are quite open and accepting to that idea. People have this really weird phobia and fear of people having guns at home. People get really I'm definitely going to need some proper drink rather than the alky stuff. People get really twitchy about this idea of neighbors having guns next door. Like, it almost changes the view of their neighbor when they find out that they've got guns, and people are just really don't like being near the vicinity of of guns. And it's sort of illogical because they suggest, oh well, keep all guns in one centralized location. And so it's like, well, that's going to then be a very, very desirable location for criminals, and they are going to hit the jackpot. Would you rather a criminal make off with one or two guns, or 200, or 200 rounds of ammunition, or 200,000 rounds of ammunition? So you can start playing down on that fear quite easily. But yeah, they've got this real aversion to the thought of their next door neighbors having guns. So if you remove that and you suddenly say, well, actually these handguns would be stored at ranges, oh wait, like we currently do with section 7.3 at, I think it's 12 different sites across the UK, where 9mm 45 any caliber handgun, otherwise prohibited weapon, is being stored there. And yes, I used weapon because that is the actual legal term of it, even though it pains me to say it, because they are firearms. Actually, some section 7.3 guns are weapons. So not all of them, but actually some of them are, certainly if they are historically significant because of world wars and who's used them and carry them because they were intended as weapons. So it's probably actually, when talking about 7.3, it's probably the only applicable time to start talking about weapons. And technically section 5 as well, because one of the biggest reasons is that you're selling it to police and military, and therefore it becomes a weapon. But anyway, I'm digressing. Where was I? So 7.3, we're already storing all of these guns across the country at different ranges. It's a prime model to propose bringing in sporting section 1 handguns again. So yeah, there isn't the mechanism necessarily at the moment. There are sporting section 5 licenses that run on that premise, but not wider across section 1. But that is how I think we'd end up getting them back. You never know. If moderators come off ticket, then they may come down in price. Potentially, but actually the certification doesn't really cost anything. An RFD is like £300 every 3 years. So in the scheme of things, like, nothing. It does make it maybe a little bit more, there's a bit more time with the admin for it, and you've got to put serial numbers on it and all of that sort of stuff. If anything, I would put my money, well, I think initially we would probably see the price of moderators increase because you would have a massive demand for them. The supply will stay the same. If overnight they become off ticket, the supply will still be the same supply. So you'll have a complete static supply, but the demand overnight will increase significantly. So I think in the short term we will see a spike in prices. So yeah, short to medium, I think moderators will actually get more expensive because you will get people wanting to cash in on it. An RFD that had SAK mods for like 30-40 quid will slap, there's going to be some of them on there that will slap that extra £10 on there because they know people will pay it, because they can walk in and just buy it and go home with them. I think long term, because it will be a de-restricted, unregulated industry, you will get more people making them. You will get more people manufacturing them and producing them. And I think over time, we're going to have a very sharp increase of demand, and it will plateau very, very quickly. Well, it will plateau very quickly and most likely fall back down to original levels, but the supply will massively increase. So yeah, I think long term, we're probably, you'll get a lot more, let's just say, like garden shed machinists making moderators and churning them out with all weird, wonderful designs because they don't need an RFD, they don't need certification. So yeah, I think short to medium time we're seeing an increase because the demand will massively increase, but I think long term we will see the supply massively increase, which will drop prices. You'll be able to buy mods via post 2, not face-to-face. Could well reduce costs a bit. Not necessarily, bearing in mind, no, air guns, you still need to do face to face. How is that? Would that change anything? No, air guns, airsoft guns, you don't need licenses for. Commercially, you can't post them. So just because something isn't, just because something is on, just because something isn't on Section 1 or Section 2, doesn't mean you can automatically post it. Air gun moderators. So again, air gun moderators is probably the finest example. You still can't post them. You need, if you're a business, if you're doing a private to, a private to private sale, then yes, as a private individual, as long as the moderator isn't on ticket. Please, I've got to be really careful with what I say here. If you have a Section 1 moderator that is on your firearm certificate, you cannot post it. It has to go RFD to an RFD transfer, or you have to meet up face to face with whoever is buying it. If your moderator is an airgun moderator and not on a certificate, and is allowed not to be on a certificate, more importantly, and it is a private to private sale, then you can send it in the post, like you can send an airsoft gun, like the Beretta 92, the air pistols. You can you can send airsoft guns, air pistols, I think even air rifles through the post. You have to check what Royal Mail and what Parcel Force will allow, but I think they do. Anyway, you can do that. But only as a private to private. And I think for shops, for commercial entities, that it will still have to be a face-to-face transaction with the moderators. So for a business, it's going to stay pretty much the same. Frank, I think there should be a petition to allow non-LBPs to be back on license, given there is no evidence that the change in law has any effect. There was a petition, I think, very early on when I started this channel, maybe in the first year, maybe a couple of years maximum. There was actually quite a big petition. And I think it reached, was it 20,000 or 40,000 signatures? It was massive. It is one of the largest shooting petitions that I have seen in the now 12, 13 years that I've been, within, I've been shooting. I've been shooting since I was a wee bebe, but really, I really got into shooting in my 20s. I'm now obviously not in my 20s. Anyway, I was just having a moment of reflection there. It helps. Yeah, and that still grates me. Whilst it was one of the biggest petitions that I've seen shooting related in over the last decade, 20 to 40,000 people is nothing, is absolutely nothing. There are 650,000 certificate holders in the UK. Like, that's not even 10%. Even if it was 40,000, I think it was closer to 20,000. Even if it was 40,000, it's still, it's less. It's like 7% or something ridiculous. And that's just the certificate holders. That's not the members of clubs, home office approved clubs that don't have certificates. That's not your airgun shooters. That's not your skirmishers. Anybody that is involved in shooting should be interested in protecting it and making things easier. J Beyond, you can't protect yourself with a firearm, but you can a crossbow. Oh, I really don't want to get into this, but you are wrong, and actually, I think for the public interest, I will correct you on a very important point here, because what you seem to suggest is that you can own a crossbow specifically to be able to protect yourself. let's make one thing clear. Within the UK, unless you are police, or, you know, a crown servant or whatever, you are not allowed to own anything, regardless of crossbows, regardless of firearms. You are not allowed to own anything for the purpose of protecting yourselves or for the purpose of self-defense. Anything that you have, be that a baseball bat, be that a lampshade, a fork, anything that you have specifically to protect yourself or defend yourself with, automatically becomes an offensive weapon. Being in possession of an offensive weapon is an offense. However, and again, not just limiting this to firearms or crossbows, um, in certain circumstances, with justification, it's probably the best word. You know, people are allowed to defend themselves within within the UK. If you fear for your life, if you fear for your safety and the safety of others, you are allowed to defend yourselves. You are allowed to protect yourselves, and you are allowed to use any objects that you may be in lawful possession of. And that is all we are going to or that is as far as I am going. But I think the main point, and what I certainly want to clarify, is you should not be going out and buying a crossbow thinking, well, this is fine, I can have this by my bed in case I fear for my safety. No, no, no. If you end up using said crossbow to defend yourself, and the police come, as they will most likely will, and go, sorry, 2 o'clock in the morning, he was in your bedroom and he's got a crossbow bolt through his chest. How did you manage that? Well, yeah, I had my self-defense crossbow by my bed. You will probably end up with a longer jail sentence than whoever you have used that crossbow on. So do not think that somehow crossbows are different in that way. Moving on. Swords are next to go, apparently. It's crazy, yes. They've talked about further regulations and restrictions on that. All this about crossbows. Hang on, wait 1 New York minute. How about licensing knives, as they are all over the news right now and have been for many years? No go for guns. That makes sense. Yes, because we can have knives. Oh, how could I forget? We can have knives. Thank you, Frank. I can't believe. I can't believe I've forgotten that. Daniel, that is pot calling the kettle black there, my friend. Hiding the chins. I will have you know that I have a chin chiseled, like Angelo and what is it? Like, you know what I'm trying to say. Chiseled out of stone. I do. I purely have the beard to just soften it off a bit. It's just too sharp, too chiseled. But yeah, it's slimming. The PCC chamber flag turned out better than my MS Paint skills ever could show. Good to hear. And apologies again, it took so long. This is what happens when you come to Magload for custom work. Moreover, this is what happens when you ask Connors to do custom work, and he's busy machining away. Andy, yes, I'd actually completely forgotten about this, and I was tempted to sort of sit down and make a whole video on it, because I almost didn't see it. Or moreover, I almost wasn't allowed to watch it. Yeah, did anybody see the BBC Two program last Sunday about 3D printed guns being made in Birmingham? It was actually a very, very interesting. You know, I've got this fixation on 3D. Well, 3D printing. 3D printing is something that I've been sort of genuinely at the bleeding edge of for a very, very long time. And also guns. So, you know, I'm sort of a very, very experienced in 3D printing, and I also happen to like guns, and also happen to co-own a company that specializes in 3D printing gun parts. So, of course, I've got quite a keen interest in 3D printed firearms. And it was quite an interesting program. The couple of cases that it was talking about specifically I think we've already covered on this channel. But you get a real behind the scenes of how the police are handling and charging people with 3D printed, found in possession of 3D printed firearms, and also how Nabis is going about actually verifying that these guns are viable firearms and are, by the definition of the law, lethal barreled weapons. Unfortunately, I was told multiple times that if I don't keep screaming at the TV, no, if I continue to keep screaming at the TV, we will have to switch it over, because there were a number of points, a number of errors by quite experienced, knowledgeable people within the police and neighbours that they kept saying. Even like things as benign as pointing to a lower receiver and going, "This is an upper." Like, no, 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 please. Oh God, there was another one that just made me sort of die inside. Um, they kept using the terminology. So in the law, it's specifically a lethal barreled weapon. And they kept calling it something else. They were like, we're trying to establish whether this is like a lethal firearm or something like that. And I know it seems small and I know it seems petty, but the law needs to be exact and the police need to be exact in applying the law. And they didn't actually correctly explain how they were testing it. It was very much like, does it go bang? Yes. Oh, it's a viable lethal firearm then. And it's like, no, 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 no. What you're trying to ascertain is that the projectile that it emits has enough kinetic energy and potential penetration to be lethal to somebody. That's what you're trying to like. Just say that. Like, come on, you literally are the guys that are doing this. And there was loads of other stuff, and I think I missed the first like 15 minutes of it. So God knows what else is in there. I do really want to find that episode and really sit down and watch it properly. I probably will, and give myself an aneurysm. But it was worth a watch. I'd go and check it out. M. Gabriel, my beard on the way out. Can't take it anymore. Wife wants me to keep it. This is like a good level. I really cannot be asked having when I start losing, this is annoying enough to maintain. I am just literally used to a grade 2 over, all over it, and like a 1 up the sides and around the back. Easy peasy. This needs all sorts of fucking shaping and topiary. Topiary? No. What's the like bonsai, whatever they call it, shearing. I don't know. Pruning. Evening or I've been away for a while. Why has Callum got Connor's beard? Oh, Jesus. I mean, people already confuse Connors and I. They will call Connors Callum and me Connors. I'm not really helping things here. And if this persists, I'll just go babyface. It's stick on, not spray on, pal. Yes, marital restrictions placed on due to the grooming. What ad do you live in Middle Earth? Oh, YouTube finally notified me that the stream is live. You just tick the bell. Make sure you got the bell selected. You probably already do. Oh no, it's not that bad. I was stuck in Illy Hospital for a while. Still managed to get a Guinness through. It's not as bad as my my late nanny, my mum's mum, who she was in hospital with a big C. It was obviously not going to end well. And I remember as a kid, I think it was like year 10. So I'd have been like 14, maybe. No, I'd been like 13, 14. And I remember going to visit her in hospital, and she was waiting. She used to wait for her oxygen level to get high enough so that the nurses would let her go outside to have a fag. I mean, she was like a 60 a day, like old school rolly smoker. So God knows it would have been a small form of torture, her sat there in the bed Are they high enough yet? Yes, go. Like running down the halls of the hospital, straight back in. Gets back in, puts the O2 sensor on, and they all know. But you know, if you're on the way out, it's not like it's going to make any difference. Being able to do IPSC with 2.2 rimfire handguns at a range would be a dream come true. You could own the gun, but it would always be stored there at the range for zeroing. Absolutely. Completely agree. It would be a massive, massive step forward for us being able to do that. Good point, but cleaning and dry practice would be a drain. Not necessarily. Don't ask me why I've got the O-light. Dan, down. And just for YouTube, before you pull the stream, this is a toy. It is not a live fire. This is a prop. It's a prop. Yes, it's a prop. Dry fire, right? This has the exact same shape, grip angle as a standard Glock. It's even got. I'll take the silly light off, and it's even got the same. You know, sort of weight and feel as a 9mm, as a live fire. That's how you do dry fire. If I was allowed to have you know, a Glock 9mm at the range, and you know, this is all I could dry fire with, I'd take that. You can really, really effectively dry fire with airsoft, with action air guns, and I am a big supporter and big pusher of people that want to get into full bore handgun shooting. Being in the UK, action air is the gateway to it. You get the same muscle memory. You get you know, you practice, you know, getting your sight picture, you know, mag changes, malfunction drills. Maybe slightly different in some circumstances. Obviously, this thing that you can't really recreate with action air is recoil, but you can't recreate recoil doing dry fire anyway. So yeah, that's how you would cope. You know, if and this is how you know, myself, Connors, Paul, that's how we're able to be semi-proficient with handguns whilst going abroad without actually being able to shoot them and own them and handle them here within the UK, apart from going out to Nizza. But again, I've only been out to Nizza maybe half a dozen, probably at least half a dozen, but yeah, probably around 6 to 10 maximum times, right? That's not enough times to get proficient with a handgun, trust me. But yet we're able to go out to, you know, quite large competitions and not completely embarrass ourselves through having things like airsoft guns and action air and all of that. That is how you do it. So yeah, that wouldn't be a problem at all for me. Why can't a firearm used for sport still be considered a weapon? Isn't a fencing ippy still a weapon? Because the definition of a weapon is something that is intended to harm or kill, and that's why I don't think all firearms are weapons by default, because you know, a Smith and Wesson 1522, when Smith and Wesson were designing that, they weren't thinking about it as a defensive firearm. They weren't thinking about it as a pest control firearm. They were thinking about it as a sporting firearm. They were thinking as it as a training aid, as a plinker, as a bit of fun. That gun doesn't, you know, the Smith and Wesson 1522 has no weapon in its DNA, as far as I'm concerned, and that's purely my opinion. I can understand why people would disagree with that. You know, what else? You know, the Walther PPQ long barrel pistol. That is not a weapon in any way, shape, or form. It's designed purely for sport. It has never been intended to be used as a weapon, either, you know, against, you know, people or animals for pest control. So, you know, yeah, uh, but a fencing epi, technically it is designed to do harm to somebody because that's why you wear all the fencing gear, because if you didn't, it would hurt, or you'd lose an eye. So it is designed to, but then it's uh, see, is a javelin a weapon? Because your modern day javelins are not intended as weapons of war. They're not intended to hurt anybody or harm anyone or anything, certainly living, apart from a few blades of grass. It's a weapon against grass, an aerator. But yeah, a javelin today is not a weapon in my mind. But yeah, I can understand. This is why we end up sort of getting onto this conversation all the time, because people think of it either which way. I don't look at guns as weapons. It's probably why I'm just so not bothered about firearms. It's why I'm so not bothered about, when I go to an airport now and there's people with handguns or rifles, because I don't actually see, you know, even like armed police and armed security. I don't see them as weapons initially, and then it's like, oh yes, that guy is that guy is carrying that gun, because if somebody tries to harm anybody, he is going to harm them a lot more. But yeah, to me, that's not my default, because for me, firearms are sporting equipment. So I don't get the get up about it. Don't get me wrong. When I first started, and I've said this many times before, and it wasn't like I was a child or anything. I was 20 years old the first time I fired a live fire gun, and it was only a 2.2 rimfire single shot bolt action target rifle, at 25 yards in an indoor range, and I was literally shaking, like physically shaking, because I had in my head, I'd shot air guns before and all of that, but I'd never really been around firearms, just a few air guns. And it was like, this is a firearm. It's designed to kill. It's a weapon. You see these on the news. These hurt people. It can go very badly wrong. And that's why I can sympathize and sort of see eye to eye, to begin with people that have this sort of irrational fear of guns. Because not that I had an irrational fear of it, but there was a lot of trepidation before I pulled that trigger. So I understand why people have that. Obviously, at this point, that's completely gone, and now I feel a bit silly about it. But I certainly understand it, and I think that's really key when you're having a discussion with people that aren't, pro gun or certainly anti gun, or certainly scared of firearms, and don't dismiss it. See it from their side and walk them over. That's all you got to do. Air guns are still a firearm, though. Yes, yeah, true. Um, need to be a full member, but I know all the boxes have been issued. Don't know what you mean by that. The proposed change will remove moderators from the list of component parts, and so it will no longer be considered a firearm. It would be an accessory like a red dot. Oh, I don't know. We will see. We will see. Air guns are firearms that don't require a certificate to possess. For most other purposes of the Firearms Act, they are still firearms. A prohibited person will not be allowed to possess pellets. Yeah, true, but there's nothing to say that they won't, because the proposal is to remove them under the scope of firearms licensing, or is it? What is exactly? We're seeking views on our legal proposal to use legislative reform order made under to remove a firearm accessory known as a sound moderator from firearms licensing controls. See, I read it differently. Let's bring that bit up. To remove a firearm accessory known as a sound moderator from firearms licensing controls. It doesn't say from firearms legislation. It doesn't say they're downgrading it from a firearm accessory, or it's purely from licensing controls. So reading into that, I think that a moderator will still be considered a firearm as air guns are, but you would just not need a certificate to own one, and in that case, you still wouldn't be able to post them. Can't have a self-defense rolled up newspaper. Michelangelo with David, that's what I meant. Don't go there, hippie. Oh, yeah. We can have newspapers. We can have knives and we can have newspapers. Do it. Clean shaven is the way to go. From a username of 3-inch dick, I don't necessarily know that that I'm going to take your advice on that. Try Manscaped. You've been watching too much YouTube. If I'm under the age, can I get a shotgun license? And will the person that drives me, a parent, need one too? Technically, there's no age limit on any certificate. You can technically, the only age restriction is 2 because you need to have known your reference for 2 years. It gets very murky when you're not old enough to buy a gun yourself and you need to be given it, because you can be given a shotgun at a much younger age than you can go and buy one. You need to be 18. But if you have a shotgun certificate and you have your own gun on that certificate, you are in lawful possession of it, and you can, if you've got a certificate with your own gun on it, you can be in possession of it and go and shoot. So that's not a problem there. There's loads of different sort of age brackets when it comes to owning guns and ages and all of that. Just a quick one before we wrap it up. There were a few other things that we were going to cover, but I don't think it's necessarily too important. I mean, this is fairly important. I'll talk about this for a sec. Your police crime commissioner actually has quite a lot to do with not necessarily to do with your firearms licensing, but they can be very, very important. Certainly, if you have issues and your firearms licensing department isn't running effectively, so you need to be aware of the elections. Head over to the BASC, head over to BASC, and you can have a look at that. Might cover that. Elections on the yes, we've got a month, so we might cover that in a little bit more in depth next time. Another just quick fire one from BASC. Shooting provides 1.1 billion in natural capital benefits. This is something, again, you get chatting to somebody that doesn't like shooting, that thinks it all should be banned. Then you just go to them, well, where's the government going to find the 1.1 billion pounds that shooting contributes to the economy? Now, that's not just in cash, that's through BASC have gone, in fairness, they've gone full hog on this one. Your carbon sequestration, okay. Public health savings, 64 million. If people are healthier, they're less of a burden on the NHS, less of a cost. So combined together, the benefits are in excess of 1.1 billion. That's a really good headline figure to quote to people. But more importantly, as you all know, we descended into a little bit of silliness, as we normally do during the live streams a couple of weeks ago. And if you were here, you were lucky enough to watch the birth of the British avian spaghetti community. And there is still, I know we haven't necessarily done live streams over the last 2 weeks, but there is the competition still running, and I still don't know whether I'm just going to pick one and let's make me a bit bigger. I don't know if I'm just going to pick one and that's just going to be the winner, or I am tempted now because there are quite a lot of entries and quite a lot of different logos that have been submitted. whether to do like a poll, make us, short list, or maybe even all of them, probably a short list, like get half a dozen of them, put them out on a poll on Facebook and through the YouTube, because you can actually do polls on YouTube, which is really handy, um, to pick a winner. But I just wanted to go over a few. Um, I'll give it probably another week or until next time we do a live stream, or until you see a poll. No, I'll launch the poll on the live stream and then a week afterwards. Because I'm genuinely thinking of going full hog with this, because we were talking about, creating a bespoke insurance package, a bespoke insurance package, based on basically my experience and knowledge within that area of going through a revocation, the amount of people that I talk to that have been refused certificates, had their certificates revoked, and whilst there are some still good insurances out there, I think there's room for improvement. Also, getting things like discounts on, your shotgun medical and all of that. But anyway, and I'm genuinely thinking, whilst this is a bit of a meme association or meme committee, I'm genuinely thinking of taking the British Avian Spaghetti Community committee and forming it into an actual organization, with its own insurance, with its own membership benefits, and even going as full hog as potentially turning it into like a Home Office approved club and finding a range for it and all of that. That's very pie in the sky, but I need something to keep me busy every now and then. But here are some of the submissions. I was so if you want to, you can put it. You can go and find the post that I did on um, on Facebook, and you can comment there, or you can email them EnglishShooting@gmail.com, or you can send them to Callum, that's CALLUM, at maglo.co.uk. Either or, I will get them. Get your submission in. And yes, you guys are incredibly heavy users of AI, to the point where there are, I'll put them up now. There's quite a lot of entries, so I'm sort of cherry picking here, where there are two that are very, very similar images, like almost identical images. But anyway, this one I do particularly like. I think it does capture it very, very well. Obviously AI, but I can fix that. I do want to see it more like a logo, so definitely something more like this for your entry rather than this. Whilst I could definitely tweak that and put it into a logo, I want to see more actual genuine logo. That looks more like a dove, but I like it. It's I can see, I know exactly how they've got that. I know exactly how they've got that. They have used like the UK PSA logo as like a threader, 100%. But anyway, I like that because it's got the, it's got the Union Jack behind it. I'm definitely liking the flat cap. Like, that is obviously definitely a pigeon. It's got the British. It's already in patch form, so it's almost already like good to go. That one I'm going to save. I'm going to save my personal favorite till last, because I think it just captures everything. Yes, things like this, whilst very, very funny and will be used in some way, shape, or form, not really a logo. I mean, it could be. It would be like a really, really crappy what is it? Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren polo, Ralph Lauren pigeon. Oh god, that's a whole clothing brand right there. Anyway, but in terms of AI doing its thing, I'm pretty sure. So this was a different submission. Two separate people, I think, submitted these. Might even be the same. But there's that submission and then this submission. They're almost identical. That just looks. That's almost like a Peaky Blinder pigeon. It's like Tommy Shelby. If Tommy Shelby was an Italian pasture-eating pigeon, that is what he would look like. Of course, there was the ones that we were coming up with on stream, which I will be submitting for consideration. My own my own logo generation. So things like this, genuinely for me looks like like an actual. doesn't look so much memey. So it's whether we go genuinely serious. But in fairness, I don't know how this is going to be beaten. I really don't know how this is going to be beaten. This is my personal favorite so far, and you're all going to know why. Like, I just don't know. Like, of course, it still needs the letters all around it and the naming and all of that, but it's just nailed it. Flat cap, pigeon spaghetti in the tweed, bourbon cigar. Like, yes, if I was ever going to start my own like association or organization or committee doesn't really work. Council, maybe we change it to council. But anyway, um, we could that is the logo is far more important, and for me, that is a logo that I can stand. I can stand behind. I was literally, I think I was in the car with Connors going somewhere. And when that came up, like I just literally couldn't wait to show him. Yeah, I think like it stopped. We stopped somewhere and I was like, you have to see this. So that for me, that is your bar. If you want to put an entry in, it's got to top that. I don't know how you make that better. But fill your boots. I will even allow the rules of this entry for you to be able to use this as inspiration, and tweak it and try and make. If you think you can make it better, fill your boots because I want to see how. So yes, we are going for this. There will be a t-shirt. Yeah, submit EnglishShooting@gmail.com, Callum CALLUM at maglo.co.uk, or find the post on Facebook. Get your submissions in that you're at least going to win a t-shirt out of it. Anyway, wow, my username is still holding me back. I've been on only ES fans for how long now? Look, you cannot tell me that when you filled out that username, you didn't think it was going to get some sort of reaction. Happy, I don't even see it as being defined by its design. It's more defined by the purpose you own it. Yeah, design purpose. Yeah. My wife, daughter, and myself a number of years ago got our renewal within 24 hours. See, a renewal in 24 hours, still bloody rapid. An initial grant in 24 hours. Now that would be that would be impressive. I thought the law changed and you had to be over 18 to have unsupervised access to shotguns. I don't think the law necessarily changed. I will go and have a look at that though. Needs a UK pin. Yeah, I'd agree with you. Maybe that's how you make that one better. Just see a bit of UK in there. I think you can gift a shotgun to a 14-year-old, but they are not allowed to own one until 18. I might be wrong, but 14-year-olds can shoot at playgrounds. Again, I might be wrong. Sorry, Happy, you're right. Supervised. Yeah, I might have to go and check the law on that one. But I thought the whole point of 14-year-olds being able to have the certificates was that they could go and use them. But anyway, I'll go and check that. Maybe worth another video. It was years ago since I last did like an age restriction video, so well worth doing that. Anyway, let's see. Let's turn that off. I am going to say goodnight to all of you, fabulous folk. Make sure you get your entries in. I do love, genuinely makes me giggle seeing people sending stuff in. Hope you all have a fantastic week ahead. Obviously, if we can stream next week, we will do. Certainly, if there's anything really important to talk about. But regardless of when we see you next, I hope you all have a fantastic shooting-filled week ahead. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining me this evening and getting involved. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Before you all leave, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Again, I'm going to try and get a dedicated video out on Sunday of the moderator consultation. Make sure you do that consultation. Make sure you go and fill out the crossbow consultation as well. It really is important. And yes, Dan, happy Easter. So, you know, hope over the long bank holiday, it's a bank holiday here in the UK for any international viewers, which means it's a long bank holiday, not just a short bank holiday, a long bank holiday, which means we get Friday and Monday off. Or if you work at Magload, Saturday and Sunday off, if you're lucky. But yeah, I hope you all have a fantastic week ahead. Thanks for joining. Make sure you like and subscribe. And of course, as always, guys, hope to see you soon.